This is James Corbett of CorbettReport.com with your Sunday update for this 7th day of March 2010. And now for the real news. In our top story this week, newly obtained documents reveal that the United Nations is seeking to create a new global environmental governance structure to oversee a multi-trillion-dollar economic transfer scheme in order to create a green world order. The plan, revealed in a discussion paper for the Global Ministerial Environmental Forum in Bali last month, calls for a staggering $45 trillion to be transferred from rich countries to developing nations. The money transferred would be overseen by UN programs and bureaucrats. The plan is remarkable for its audacity, hoping to construct such a world governmental system at the World Summit on Sustainable Development in Rio de Janeiro in 2012, a summit that will mark the 20th anniversary of the commencement of the carbon eugenics agenda at the very site where that agenda was first revealed. In a related development, billionaire Bill Gates, who is often billed by the corporate media as the richest man in the world despite the existence of trillionaires like the Rothschilds, garnered attention this week for a statement he made at the 2010 TED conference last month.
Now, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
The statement is noteworthy as it reveals the real agenda behind the Gates-funded drive to vaccinate the Third World, which is not to increase the population as popularly conceived, but to reduce it, ostensibly to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. Gates funds such organizations as GAVI, the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization, which has been caught testing experimental vaccines on Africans without their knowledge or consent. The GAVI Alliance also includes the WHO, which was caught adding an abortifacient known as HCG to tetanus vaccines in the Third World in the 1990s. In a developing story, legislation in the Senate that would repeal essential protections for national security whistleblowers continues to move closer towards passage. The bill, identified as S-372, started out as whistleblower protection legislation, but members of the Obama administration have added poison pills at the last minute that would in fact strip whistleblowers of what few protections they currently have. Earlier this week, the Corbett Report talked to Stephen Kohn, executive director of the National Whistleblower Center, about the bill and its provisions.
Right now, under the First Amendment, we're supposed to have the right of freedom of speech without fear. But under this law the Senate is about to pass, it's going to give the director, just the director of any intelligence agency of the Department of Defense, of the Department of Commerce, the right to summarily fire any whistleblower with no judicial review, no administrative review. If the Secretary of Commerce, the head of Justice, the head of the Defense Department, either of them say, oh, it's in the interest of national security, you're fired, you have no rights. If this law passes, and if over 1/2 of the entire federal workforce is subjected to summary firings with no judicial review for blowing the whistle, that impact will be devastating. It's a complete betrayal of the First Amendment. It's a betrayal of what I think America's come to expect of the rights of employees. But that is in the Senate law, and it's moving towards passage.
The bill is being passed via a special legislative process known as hotlining, meaning it will not be brought to the Senate floor for a vote. Instead, the bill will clear the Senate unless a senator objects to it. Whistleblower activists point out that it would be relatively easy to get at least one senator to object to the bill if citizens began to bring political pressure to the issue. So far, the legislation has been completely ignored by the establishment media. On a positive note this week, the disintegration of the establishment media continues apace as the vast majority of people continue turning off their TVs and putting down their newspapers and turning to the internet for their news. As Ars Technica is reporting, the internet has now surpassed newspapers as the third most popular source for news among American citizens, right behind local and national TV news broadcasts. The newspaper industry continues its headlong death spiral this week, as the LA Times released an edition of the paper with a full-page advertisement for Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland gracing the paper's front page. The move is said to have brought in $700,000 for the Times, but may have cost more than that as outraged subscribers begin canceling their subscriptions. As if to confirm that TV news is to be the next victim of the establishment media, CNN has begun a fear-mongering attempt to portray those who get their news from the internet as deranged killers.
Well, what we know about the writings he's made online is that it does fit some of the types, some of the tropes that we've seen throughout the first year of Obama in particular. A lot of the conspiracy theories. Of course, 9/11 conspiracy theory goes back to the Bush era. But this anti-government fervor, which has really been stoked on the internet with particular intensity in the last year, he does follow. But it's a mistake to try to shoehorn him into any one ideology or to make him fit any existing narrative, especially a partisan political narrative. What's very clear is that this is a very disturbed individual who's drunk very deeply out a lot of the hate and paranoia that's being sold on the internet by a lot of these conspiracy entrepreneurs. And that's what happens when you use hate as a cheap and easy recruiting tool, but it can lead to violence, especially when the folks who are drinking it are kind of unstable to begin with.
No word yet on whether CNN applies this logic to 6 of the 10 9/11 commissioners, including Commission Chairman Kohn and Hamilton, as well as Bob Kerrey, Max Cleland, Tim Romer, and John Lehman, all of whom have said that the 9/11 Commission was a cover-up and that a new investigation is needed. In 2000, it was revealed that several officers from the U.S. Army's 4th Psychological Operations Group at Fort Bragg worked in the news division at CNN's Atlanta headquarters starting in 1999. In 2006, it was revealed that Anderson Cooper himself was recruited by the CIA while a sophomore in Yale. In 2009, CNN's ratings continued to plummet, leaving the network in last place among television news outlets. Meanwhile, viewers continue to turn off television altogether, as recent research indicates that TV viewing leads to brittle bones, alcoholism, pregnancy, child neglect, and up to 80% greater risk of dying from cardiovascular disease, regardless of how much one exercises. There are no such ill effects being reported about internet usage. Now, stay tuned to CorbettReport.com for episode 120 of the Corbett Report, Economics 101, where we talk to John Williams, G. Edward Griffin, Catherine Austin Fitz, and F. William Engdahl about the reality behind the corporate-controlled media's economic headlines.